では今日はアラン・コーエンさんをお招きしています。Alan, thank you so much for coming on to my show.
I'm so excited to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So how are you today?
Oh, it's a new year. All's
Mm-hmm.
well. Excited about the year to come.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. 2020, what a year. It was a crazy, crazy year. I don't think anybody kind of imagined it would be a year
Uh,
like
it's,
that.
it's a good year to leave behind.
Yes, yes, for
But
sure.
there are so many learnings from it. I mean, even though it was very difficult for many people, there was so many spiritual opportunities and healings and awakening that it really served us.
Yes, I was actually watching your one of the documentary shows you were in, Fighting Joe.
I need you.
Fighting Joe, and that's one of my favorite documentary film. And then
Mhm.
the other part I love is that it starts off with you. You're into you
Yeah,
you start
yeah,
with the
that was the best part.
yes. So I felt like the pandemic was sort of a hero's journey or a calling.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It really pushed a lot of us to re-examine our values and our lifestyles and our jobs and our families. It was a big confront to look within and ask, who am I and what am I doing with my life? And, what do I really want to do for my life? How do I really want to live?
And also there were a lot of other than the pandemic, there were other issues opening up, and there were
Yeah,
a lot of separation, and I felt
yeah,
like that taught us to look deeper into
yeah.
ourselves.
It was a major spiritual growth stimulus. And the people who used it as such really grew a lot. And so, it just shows that it's not what happens that makes our life, but it's how we interpret it and what we do with it. That determines our experience.
Yes, for sure. And also in your coaching practices, you teach the Japanese people to become a life coach. And in your training, you always talk about love and fear. And this, the old past 2020 was the
Yeah.
the best opportunity to kind of use that practice of like whether you have the voice of fear
Yeah.
or love. Can you talk about that a little bit?
その通りです. uh, yeah, it really brought forth both extremes, didn't it?
Hmm.
Some people went into deep fear and deep self-protection, and they didn't leave their house for months, and they were terrified by anybody coming near them. And other people used it to reach out and help other people. Like there was a guy in Australia who was walking through a public square, and people were lined up waiting for public assistance. And he went to his bank and he took out $10,000 and he gave everybody in line $100. And he said it was the best use of money he ever spent.
Wow.
So, it brought out the worst in people and it brought out the best in people. And that's what a challenge does.
And usually, after a drastic change like this, it kind of, for a lot of people, they open their eyes and they go deeper and then realize what life is about and then find their true self. But on the other side, some people are not able to do that. And
Yeah.
what would you say to people who are kind of a little bit still in their little shelter, kind of protecting themselves? How can
Well,
they get
I would
out?
ask them, how does it really feel to be so protective? I mean, if you feel good, then that's one thing. But usually, when you feel defensive, you can never get enough defense.
Hmm.
And so I would ask them, okay, tell me what the voice of fear says. Oh, I'm going to get COVID. I'm going to die. Okay, got it. What would the voice of love or trust say? Well, maybe we'll get through this. Maybe there are forces at work more than the obvious ones. Maybe if I relaxed a little more, I could flow through this, even if I wear my mask and wash my hands. But if I just had more of a trusting, flowing attitude, I would feel better. So it's examining both voices and see how each one makes you feel.
And then to feel your voices, how, like, I know you have numerous years of meditation training, and a lot of people are looking into meditation for that reason, but how would you listen to your inner voice? How can you clearly hear that love, the voice of love?
It's a good question, isn't it? Like you say, any kind of spiritual practice that raises your vibration will help you. Meditation, prayer, yoga, hula, being in nature, music, reading, napping, playing with your dogs, playing with your kids. Anything, fear operates at a very dense frequency and joy operates at a higher frequency. And so if you do anything that raises your frequency, even if it's something simple like reading a novel, a fun novel, so then you've actually risen. It's like being in an airplane. If you hit turbulence, you change your altitude equals attitude. And so, anything you do to raise your frequency to one of more peace, joy, calm will help you see more clearly and make more effective decisions.
Yes, that's beautiful, beautiful. If you're above the cloud, you can see everything from a higher perspective, and you can see it in a different view.
And you see the sun is still there, but the clouds were just blocking it. So you can't blame the clouds for destroying the sun. They just blocked your vision of it for a moment. But if when the clouds open or you rise above them, the sun is still there.
And then I guess 2020 was that thick cloud, and now 2021, I feel like in Hawaii, the volcano erupted, and I feel like some sort of excitement that a new life is emerging. Yeah. And how do you see 2021?
Well, I think, I think that it's a continuation of the same kinds of tests and challenges and invitations as 2020. But I think it'll get lighter for the people who are choosing light. I think we can use the turn of the year as an opportunity to practice choosing light. I did a YouTube on what to leave and what to take. And, like you can choose to leave behind fear and upset and anger and sense of vulnerability. I mean, if you use the year to practice like a snake sheds its skin. Like when something is old and doesn't work anymore, you just leave it behind and you move into something new. So I think it's more opportunity to practice the principles that we believe in and prove that they work, because universal laws really work if you practice them, that where spiritual laws are true.
Yes. And for us, like we forget about practicing those kind of spiritual practices because we think like, okay, we can all of a sudden be enlightened and become, somebody like Buddha, but then you have to practice. It's just like a muscle. You have to practice it.
Exactly. I mean, it's very, very rare that somebody just has a big aha and then they're enlightened forever, maybe one or two here and there. But for most of us, we get disconnected, get reconnected, go into fear, go into love, feel separate, feel joined. And so, I mean, I've been on this path for many, many years, and every day I have to practice choosing love. Fear comes up, choose love. Loneliness comes up, choose connection. And so you can't get lazy on the spiritual path. You can't just, I did my homework and now I can just play. Well, we want to play, but you want to stay true to your principles. That's otherwise you get sucked in and stuff. It feels so good.
Can you talk a little bit about your calling? When was your first calling that, you are the person of the, you're one of the most profound spiritual leader in this world, but how did you first get your first calling?
Well, there were many. When I was in college, I was very much in my head. And I was living from the neck up, and I was playing games, and I was not very conscious. And I went to this retreat sponsored by the college where they took groups of kids, and you went off to a cabin in the woods for a weekend, and you communicated. And I was hiding behind my facade of I'm cool and I'm okay, I don't have any problems. And then at the very end of the weekend, somebody said to me, "How are you feeling, Alan?" I said, "I feel really comfortable." And the other 11 people in the group said, "Nah, you don't look so comfortable to me."
Mhm.
And and I realized that I wasn't fooling anybody except myself. They could all, they say in Japan, read the air. They could all read the air, and they saw that I was uptight. And a little voice inside me said, "It's really okay, Alan. You can be honest." I said, "Well, to tell you guys the truth, I really haven't felt so comfortable." And everybody goes, "Yeah, you finally told the truth." And it just sounds like a very simple thing, Tomoko-san, but it was the first time in my adult life that I felt like I could be myself, that I didn't have to put up an image or prove myself or impress anybody. And that began my spiritual path. I became a vacuum cleaner for anything that would help me be more alive and be more honest.
Mm-hmm.
I went to every guru and every meditation session, every church, and I just was hungry for this higher awareness than the very stuffy life I had been living. And that was a turning point for me.
Wow. And when was the first time you kind of felt that you see the light and you can feel the light and you can connect to your higher self or the higher entity or the bigger
I
self?
studied with a meditation teacher in New York. Her name was Hilda Charlton. And she would lead these meditations where she would actually lift you to a higher plane. It's hard to describe, but she was such a high master that I would take these meditations. I felt like, my vision was opening and I could see God and I was connected and and it was an actual experience of being at home in God, and it lasted for just a few minutes because it was a guided meditation, but then I had to go home and practice it. That was where I built my muscles. So there have been many, but those were the beginnings.
Mm. And you also wrote so many books, 27 books, and you have 15 books translated. Actually, I guess it's 28 because you have another book coming
Yeah.
out in English. But with all of those, so that is all of the messages you kind of received through
Yeah.
your higher self or...
Yeah, I feel like the books are, I don't want to say channeled. I
Mm-hmm,
would call them inspired,
mm-hmm,
that, my guides or angels or masters, whatever you want to call it, or just God, gives me an idea. And then my job is to get it on paper and flesh it out.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I see myself more as a secretary than an author. I feel like I'm doing the best I can to translate the information I receive into terms that people can understand and enjoy.
Wow. Well, I love that secretary or translator.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of that, but I feel like even with your coaching trainings and I feel like the holistic life coach that you train are those mediums and translators for
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
kind of doing that for their clients. What do you think,
Yeah.
Alan?
It's bringing spiritual principles to earth in
Mm-hmm.
ways that people can really practice them. And, coaching, we call it coaching, but it's really healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really teaching. We don't consider coaches teachers, but we're reminding our clients who they really are. We're shifting from fear to love. We're shifting from a limited, and in Japan, people have such bad self-images because you're taught to feel guilty almost from day one.
Yes, yes.
So, you can never do enough to prove yourself. And so with Japanese clients, all clients, but Japanese clients especially, it's so important to shift from an identity of limitedness or guilt or shame or owningness to I'm a good person and I'm whole and I'm lovable and I'm beautiful. I don't have to prove myself. I don't
Uh-huh.
have to earn my good. I'm good enough as I am.
Yes.
And so that's the major shift we're looking for with all people, but Japanese people especially.
Yes, I feel that way, the same way too. When I work with you, Alan, I noticed that I don't think in Japan, like people realize how limited we are, or we don't even realize we have that guilt. So it's a
Yeah.
realization that we have, number one, we had that guilt, and we didn't even think that we were we can change that
Yeah.
because we didn't realize that before.
That's a great way of putting it. It's like a awakening to a possibility you didn't know existed. And it changes lives. We had one guy come and he had like an arthritis kind of condition where he was very contracted. And in the course of one weekend, it all just lifted because he decided to love himself. He had so many self-judgments that he was like all balled up. But then when he decided to accept himself and just enjoy himself, his shoulders dropped and he stood up straight. He had like a physical healing. So I don't consider myself a physical healer, but his, when his mind changed, then his body changed too. And that's kind of symbolic that so many people are walking around like this psychically. But then when you relax, things start to open up.
Yes, that's like a miracle. I feel like loving ourselves is, I guess we are born loved and we're pure love, but then as we become adult and learn and go through our life, we forget to love ourselves. It's one of the hardest thing, I feel like, to love ourselves.
Yeah. No child is born with guilt. And you walk around naked, you fall down, you don't care. And then all these, rules are laid upon you from day one, Japanese families shove a computer in the kid's hand at age 6 months. I hope you didn't do that, but it's good. And you're all of a sudden you have all these rules you have to live up to. You go, wait a minute, I just came from heaven, and now all of a sudden I have all these rules. And not that you shouldn't train children and give them good standards. That's important. But when they're accompanied with guilt and shame and pressure, that's not good. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think with a lot of the I feel like with 2020, people are kind of like realizing what are their true passion and what their true calling is. And I feel like people are wanting to change their life and also heal other people's life.
Yeah.
And then and you're going to have your holistic life coach training program start from April. Right. And this is your 9th term.
Yeah. It's a training for people who would like to become a certified professional coach. And you can either use it as a full-time profession if you want to live your passion. You can incorporate it into your current job or just use it in your personal life. And it's all about shifting your mindset and seeing with a higher vision and relaxing and trusting. And then as you open your own heart, you have the power to help other people open theirs too. So it's a really exciting training, not just for the people who receive coaching, but for the people who the coaches. The coaches have a bigger transformation than the clients because they have to go through the principles and use them.
Yes, I see that transformation it's just so wonderful. It's like you feel like if you're a coach, you're going to heal the client, but then you have to heal yourself first, and then you can transmute that love. And I think that is so beautiful. And that is like is it a 6-month training? It's a 6-month.
Yeah, training. It starts in April and goes through October.
And then the students get to see you via Zoom and meet with you in a group session and work the courses.
Yeah, hopefully by the time October comes around, I'll be able to come back to Japan. But we'll start out with Zoom. And, there's a lot of intimacy on Zoom. I used to kind of resist it because, well, it's not the same thing as being in person. But I think people have got so used to Zoom that they're talking and laughing and crying and emoting. It's like, we achieve tremendous intimacy just through computers. So it's kind of spiritual too, because we're not our bodies. Your bodies do not have to be in the same room to have spiritual communication. So, thank God we had Zoom to carry us through the pandemic. I wish I had bought stock in it before the pandemic. I'd be a billionaire by now.
But I feel like the students get they can see you on their computer screen, and then it's like the first row, like the front row kind of like experience that you can.
Yeah, there's tremendous intimacy. We all have lots of questions and responses, and I coach them, so it really works. It's a very effective medium.
Mm-hmm. And that is starting in April. And you also have another new program which is called Leap. leading edge of accelerating prosperity.
Yeah, this is an 8-week program, 8-webinar program on how to develop a prosperity consciousness. So it's not just about money, but it's about relationship and health and passion and work, about opening your mind so you recognize all the good things that are available to you and you can accept them and receive them instead of keeping them at a distance. We did this program in America last year. It was very successful, so we're bringing it to Japan this year.
Oh, wow. And then this starts in mid-January.
I think January 9th, yeah.
Wow. And then you're going to go through the abundance universe, building a wealth mentality, new model of wealth. So the wealth mentality, I think after 2020, people are kind of switching into like from a scarcity mindset, people will need to move on to the abundant mindset.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, people got very constricted. Well, I can't go out. My old job doesn't work anymore. So it's time to open up once again and recognize that there are channels of abundance. There are channels of love that we don't have to hide out, that we can really express ourselves and be creative and help the world. And, the people who choose prosperity consciousess when others are choosing fear and lack, they're the ones who lift the planet, because you're like a torchbearer, and when it's dark, you can see the light much more clearly. So, we're training people, inviting people to be torchbearers, so that other people can see the light and be lifted as well.
Oh, wow.
You're doing that in your own way in Hawaii. You're teaching, you have your hula work and your Hawaiiana work. So, you're a light right where you are.
Yes. Well, that is really exciting. And what sorts of transformation did you see with the LEAP program?
I saw people relaxing more about money and shifting from a lack mentality to an enough mentality. We saw them recognizing old limits that were holding them back, that were not real. And they realized they'd been living in sort of a bubble that was not solid, that they could break out of that bubble like a chick breaks out of a shell. We saw people manifesting more money, but we also saw people manifesting relationships and physical healings and healings of the heart. And, prosperity is not just about money. Mm-hmm. It's really about a way of thinking and living. And once you attain that mindset, everything you point your mind on starts to prosper. Like in the spring, all the little flowers and leaves start to come out again because, the time is ripe and the sun is shining.
Wow, beautiful. And that will be a 3-month course.
Hi.
Okay. Wow. So you have 2 programs coming up, and who should be taking these programs?
Well, anybody who feels drawn to them. If you would like to live in a more abundant life from the inside out, the LEAP program would be very good. If you're really ready to go, the coach training is a deep dive. It's not just intellectual notes. It's really about experiencing and connecting. There's a lot of group interactions, so you're working with other people intimately. So it's really a life-changing course and getting to know yourself and opening to the next level. So that's for students who are really serious about changing their lives. Mm-hmm. So, most people come by intuition. They say, well, I feel like this is for me, so I'm going to do it. And so we invite anybody who feels called to be part of it, to be a part of it.
Wow. So going back to, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. So for some people, your course could be the calling, or can be the calling, and it could be the transformation they're looking for.
It can be, yeah. The first part of the hero's journey is that your regular life is interrupted. Mm-hmm. And that things just kind of cruising along, but then something comes up that jars you and says, wait a minute, I may need to do a course correction here. And so 2020 was a big interruption for most people. Wow, what am I going to do now? And so that's the first stage. But then the second stage is to ask, how can this propel me to a new and better life? So a lot of people were staying home and actually enjoying their kids. Some people were bugged by them, but, they were enjoying them as well. a lot of people had to reinvent themselves and they're working from home. They said, wait a minute, I like this a lot more than going to an office. A lot of people had a whole new career. And, it's challenging, but it really forced a lot of people to tell more truth about how they want to be living. And when the expression as the dust settles, when the old kind of dissipates, then you're on higher ground. The pandemic can move lots of people to higher ground than it has.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I hope, a lot of people in Japan would be kind of listening to this and feel that, and then know that there's a calling, and then
Yeah.
if you open up your heart, you can hear that calling.
Yeah,
Well,
I think there's a lot of Japanese people who are ready for a shift.
mhm.
They're busy going to jobs for 10, 12 hours a day, and they're tired and they don't feel well, and they have marital strife because one person works so much. And they're busy proving themselves to their parents and their bosses and their spouse. And I think it could be time I tracked a lot of people in Japan who are ready to consider if all the struggle they've been struggling is necessary. Like, is it possible to have a rewarding, fulfilled life without sacrificing and hurting myself on a daily basis? That's one of the key messages for the Japanese. You can succeed, and it can be easier if you're willing to let it. When I say be lazy, you still go to work, you still have your family, but there are ways to look at it that are so much more rewarding than, oh my God, I have to get up and work hard again all day today. And I have to wear the same suit that everybody else wears. Encourage individualism and self-expression if you want. One of our guys used to wear pink. He was a manager at a big pharmaceutical company. He wore like yellow pants to work, and he enjoyed himself. People came to him for coaching. They liked him. They said, "Oh, what do you know that I need to know?"
Wow. Yes. So definitely, yeah, a lot of the Japanese people will kind of feel this shift and hear this
Yeah.
calling. So yeah, I'm so excited that, thank you so much for coming on, Alan, to my show today. I had this voice of fear, asking you to come on to my
Oh,
show. So, and I had that voice of fear for a couple of months. Then I finally decided, okay, I'm just gonna ask, and you said
yeah.
yes. I'm so glad you came on
Did you
and
have
said
fun?
yes, I did. I did. I love it, and it's so it's just a wonderful opportunity. So thank you so
Yeah,
much
my
for your
pleasure. I
message.
just love what you're doing. It's this bright soul. You translate so beautifully, and you bring such a nice energy to our programs. Can I say one more thing to the
Of
Japanese
course, of
viewers?
course.
I have tremendous respect and faith in the Japanese people. I think that you're, in some ways, the most spiritual culture on the planet. I hate to compare, but even though a lot of Japanese people wouldn't consider yourself spiritually, have a deep morality and a deep kindness and a deep caring and a deep desire to help and this deep oneness. And I think that as that intrinsic tamashi, is that the word?
Yes,
Yeah.
spirit, soul. Yes.
That intrinsic, the Japanese nature is a very high spirituality historically. And a lot of it has gotten buried under technology and business and Americanization, all that kind of stuff. But really, there's such a soul. This is why I've been coming to Japan for 20 years. I love the Japanese so much because they're such great learners and so willing to advance. And, really, once you get out from under this need to prove yourself, they're such big hearts, such caring, kind, generous people. And I learn as much from the Japanese as they learn from me. That's why I keep going back. So, it's really my delight to support Japanese students to really just like the flower opens in the spring, to just really come forth and, live the life you came to live, your life, not someone else's life. And then when people do that, they get healed and they get prosperous and they find relationships. That's a wonderful thing to participate in. I'm very honored to participate in that process.
Wow, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for that. And I didn't notice that you've been coming to Japan for 20 years. You might know Japan more than I do.
No, probably not. It's in your blood. I've learned. Yeah. Well, you're a good bicultural person to bridge the gap. That's right.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a treat. And yes, I hope we have a lot of people finding your program. And yeah, I'm excited about
Yeah.
people's life changing and transforming to their
Yeah.
true self.
And keep up your great work with all the podcasts. You're really helping a lot of people. You're a light in your own way.
Ah, thank you so much.
Okay. Take care,
Thank you. Thank
Tomoka-san.
you.